record this, Wendy, and put it out live.
Sure.
Are
you hearing a little weird audio? I wonder if I need to get headphones. How's the audio? I'm hearing squeaking on my end.
Are you? Okay.
Oh, no, I'm not. Well, try talking. Can you, do I sound normal to you?
You sound normal to me, yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe we're okay. I just wanted to make sure I didn't need earphones. I might have some somewhere.
I don't think we're okay.
Okay, good.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So welcome to my channel, To Reads and Eats. This is Wendy Stetson, who is a good friend of mine and also an author, an actress, and a narrator.
That's right, yeah.
I'm amazed at how much you've done. I mean, if you look at it most recently, was it Monsterland you did?
I did. Yeah, that's the most recent television job I did. That was a little while ago. It was before COVID. Things since COVID have kind of changed the entertainment industry a little bit. I haven't done as much in terms of acting stuff since then, but hopefully soon. But yeah, I did that. We shot that here. I'm trying to remember. It was I don't remember where it was. I think we shot it on Long Island. And that was some fun. It was in like a diner, and it was right at the end of the day. We were the last shot of the day. So it really was that kind of like, we're burning daylight. Like when, you wait around all day and finally it's time for your scene, and there you go in, and because it was in a diner, there were background actors in the parking lot with cars and background actors in the diner. And it was a little bit like, okay, go, because we need to get this before it's dark. And I was working with the lovely young actress, Caitlin Deaver, who I think a lot of people know from Booksmart, and she's done a bunch of stuff lately, but she was a delight. So yeah, that was a really fun job. That was
I bet. Yeah. I mean, kind of the other ones, just for other viewers who have maybe not seen Monsterland, there's The Path, The Sinner, The Sounding, and Odd Mom Out. So you've done a lot, and you've also been on Broadway as well.
That's right. Yeah. I've worked with the Lincoln Center Theater a lot here in New York City. Did 3 shows with them, it's fun. It's been some fun.
Yeah. And then I sort of looked obviously at the books that you've narrated, and I was like, I'm amazed at how many you've done. But like, you've obviously done the Emily trilogy by L.M. Montgomery. These are delightful books. I've read all 3 of them, and they're gorgeous.
They're beautiful. And I, as a bookish redhead, just loved Anne of Green Gables when I was growing up. There are so many audio versions of Anne, but there weren't very many of Emily. And the Emily books came into the public domain, and I have a producer that I work with where you can, propose books that are in the public domain and record them.
Yeah.
Have them go up on Audible. And so I thought, I'll do the Emily books. And I've thought about there's some other, like The Story Girl, some other lesser known Ellen Montgomery books that are now in the public domain that I thought, I should give those a whirl, because I've just always really responded to her writing. I mean,
it's beautiful.
Yeah. And the characters are so vibrant and memorable, and I don't know, they really resonate with me. So
yeah, I mean, the other ones that I like, this one, Mr. Darcy's Mail Order Bride by J. Don King. That sounds absolutely hilarious.
I'm trying to remember. I did that one a while ago, because one of the ways that you can get work as a narrator is to work directly with other small indie authors, and so that was how I connected with her, and did a couple books for her. And as I recall, it was completely delightful. Yeah, so it's been fun. I've had a good time doing that. I mean to do my books. I've had so many people say, when are your books going to be in audio? And I keep saying soon. And it's, trying to decide, do I spend time writing? Do I spend time narrating? How to best use my time to get the stories out there. So I have to do it, especially now that book 3 of this series is done. I really should get on narrating those.
What made you want to write the Hearts of Ridge series or trilogy?
Yeah.
Was there
So
anything that completely sparked it, or was it just an idea that you've had brewing for a while?
So I wrote Hometown, the first draft of Hometown, probably 20 years ago now. I was just out of grad school for acting
Right.
and, of course, trying to find jobs. And I was watching an episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show. That's how you know how long ago it was, about romance writers. And I remember sitting on my couch in my little tiny studio on West 96th Street and thinking, I could maybe do that. And the advice, of course, was write what you know. So I didn't set out to write Amish romance, which 20 years ago wasn't as robust a genre as it is now. I mean, there were some, Beverly Lewis, who had been around since the 80s. There were, some stalwarts who had written it. But I just thought, okay, write what I know. Well, what if a tall, gangly redhead went back to her little hometown in Pennsylvania and fell in love with an Amish guy? That sounds like a recipe for trouble. So I just started writing it. And I had been a double English theater major in college, so I've done some literature study, but I didn't really do a lot of creative writing. And then I had gone to grad school in acting. So, I knew about storytelling and dialogue and sort of general story structure, but I've learned a lot since then. So I wrote that first draft and I wasn't able, and I ended up getting a literary agent through a friend.
Wow.
And she tried to sell it, and I'll never forget, it was too quiet for today's crowded marketplace back in the 2000s. Yeah. So she didn't manage to sell it. And to her credit, it was a quieter book even then than it is now. There was like a whole scene where the heroine cleans her garage. And so then which I shortened significantly for the current version. So then I wrote another book, and she gave me a lot of feedback on that second book, which wasn't an Amish story. And at that point, I thought, I'm already kind of trying to do one impossible thing by being an actor. This was supposed to just be sort of fun.
Yeah.
And I started getting a lot more acting work, so I set the books aside. And went on to do a lot of theater work, a lot of teaching. I also work as a teaching artist, going into schools. So I was doing a lot of teaching Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And then, about 5 or 6 years ago, the acting work was slowing down a little bit before the pandemic. And I thought, I have these books on my hard drive. I should do something with them. So I had done some audiobook narrating at that point, and I reached out to some authors who wrote sort of similar, in the sweet closed door romance genre, and said, do you recommend your publishers? And I sent them what I had, and they were like, these are great, you should try to get an agent. And I thought, oh gosh, there we go with that again. But then I started submitting to small publishers that would take direct submissions without agents. And that was how the Wild Rose Press, the small romance publisher that I work with, found me. And so several rewrites later, the book that I had written about 20 years before, Hometown, finally came out. And so then the pandemic hit, and I was like, maybe I should write a series, since it doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of acting work. So I approached the Wild Rose Press and said, how can I turn this into a series? And they said, write synopses, come up with ideas, and send them to us. So that's how I ended up.
I mean, I love Tessa. I mean, she is a great character. And the gazebo that Jonas builds for her mom and dad sounds absolutely delightful.
Yeah, she's, the one who's probably closest to me. The first book that I wrote, I've been trying since then to really, sort of as you do as an actor, get inside of the other characters and other points of view. But Tessa will always be sort of dear to my heart, because she's the kid from central Pennsylvania who comes back home. I grew up in a town called Lewisburg, which is the inspiration for Green Ridge. So Green Ridge is very closely, my friends from my hometown, recognize all of the locations that I've written.
Well, that's good. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Nora's story was really, it was alluded to in book one. We met her daughter.
Yeah.
And I loved the way that you developed Nora into the main character of book two.
Yeah.
And just the way her attitude just changes.
Yeah.
For the love of music, I thought, and the love of dance.
Yeah.
I thought it was really great.
Thank you. Yeah, I like I mean, if there is a villain in book one, it would be
Nora.
Jonas's sister, Nora.
Yeah.
And, you know, as an actor, we're always taught no villain thinks of themselves as a villain. They
Yeah.
do what they do out of love because
Mm-hmm.
they think, you know, the choices that they're making and the things that they're standing up for are the right things. And so I
Mm-hmm.
thought she should get a story where she's not just the baddie, but
Yeah.
we try to get inside of why she's so bitter and angry in book one.
Yeah.
Um, and then I sort of like, so then she comes back in book three, and I like how the new heroine, Darcy, still finds her a little prickly, you know, finds
Yes.
her not easy to connect to. So, which I
Yeah.
thought seemed real. Like, yes,
Yeah.
she's got this big change inside, and she's found love again, but she's still a little
Yeah.
cautious with outsiders, still a little prickly,
Yeah.
um, which seemed true to me, you
I
know.
mean, yeah, I mean, Tucker was, I loved him and I loved his grandfather. The way his grandfather also took Nora's daughter Rebecca under his wing
Yeah,
was beautiful. You know, here's a book for you to read. And
yeah,
she just devoured all the books he had. So I really enjoyed that aspect of that book as well.
yeah,
And, you know, the fact that she was like, can I, you know, Nora's going, I'm not really allowed to dance, but I don't want to let the group down. I thought the way that she got round that conflict was really good.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I like putting characters, getting them in real messes, you know, putting
Mm-hmm.
characters in situations that it feels like there's no way out of this.
Yeah.
And working out a kind and, you know, generous and sometimes messy solution to whatever the
Yes.
problem is, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I mean, I don't know. I don't think Nora doesn't go back to the tap dance class, but she's certainly not. She understands community, you know, and she's not
Yes.
let all those. I love writing the kind of quirky cast of characters around the main characters. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of my
Yeah.
favorite things. She's not going to let all those folks down, you know, all
No.
those people at the senior center who are counting on her for their
Yes.
performance, and then that the performance is to benefit, you know, Dr. Richard's medical clinic, which
Exactly.
changed her life. So for all those reasons, someone who would never dream of breaking the rules suddenly finds
No.
herself.
No. And I mean, I love the fact that when we go into book 3, there is still the fact that you see her at times dancing in the house, which I absolutely love. That she hasn't let that go.
Yep.
That it's still there.
Yeah.
And obviously her husband Tucker still plays his guitar and everything. And I really like that even just because he became, you know, he became Amish. Sorry guys, spoilers. But um he hasn't let that side of his life go, which I really liked.
Yeah, and I did a lot of research into that to find, you know, is there a world in which someone who is a musician would have a place in the Amish community? And I found examples, in fact, saw videos of, and it's generally, it would be among a community that was more liberal, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And in general they would play for things that were benefits, you know, and a lot of religious music and or country music. They like the country
Yeah.
music, you know. It would all be quite nothing inappropriate in the music, but then for various benefits and church things, and you know. And then I read about a guy who played in prisons as well. Yeah. And actually there is a prison in my small town in Pennsylvania. And I thought, oh, I could have Tucker go there. And then I thought, oh no, that starts to get messy. We'll leave
Yeah.
the penitentiary out of Greenwich. But yeah.
And we then go on to Darcy and Samuel's story.
Yeah.
I always have felt, at the very beginning, I felt really sorry for Darcy because her parents are, you know, a bit nah.
Yeah.
And I really liked that you know, her reconnection with her cousin. I thought that was, you know, that was really, really lovely.
Yeah.
And the fact that she has these memories of spending time with her grandmother.
Yeah.
In the house, and I liked the sort of, there was, you knew why she was being drawn to Greenwich and why she wanted to be there. Although you know, later on in the story you find out, well, maybe was it really for the reason that she's there for the right reason or not? And I really liked that, and it is interesting that Samuel is he was the more conflicted of the two characters, it was interesting to get that point of view.
Yeah, yeah. I like the idea, you know, Jonas is, more spoiler alert, sort of the hero in the first one, right? And he makes his big choice and strikes out and goes on his own. But then I liked looking at, well, what happened to the people who were left behind? You know, like he's the hero of his own story, but then there's brothers and sisters left behind who have to kind of clean up in his wake, you know? And so I like the idea of Samuel maybe being a little bit estranged from him because of that and feeling all this responsibility as a result. Like Big Brother went off and did his thing and now I got it, you know, which seemed really true to me. And then I liked finding how they would come back together, you know, and I feel like there's room. I was just thinking last night about, my husband took me out to a little belated like book launch dinner together. And we were talking about, I feel like I would like to write a follow-up episode with maybe all three couples, you know, and
that'd be great.
That would be kind of fun. And also it was a little daunting. I was like, oh my gosh, what would happen if they were all in a room together? And what would that room be? Would it be Christmas? Would it be, I don't know. So I was just thinking about that. But I like the idea of seeing them come back together. And I think they, you know, take over they join in for the solar panel business. Maybe they all are together on that, some kind of construction solar panel company.
Yeah. And what I know we've kind of chatted back and forth, but what you can do with Rebecca, we can't leave her just.
I know.
You have to find out. Somebody has to, you know, she's such a wonderful, bubbly, effervescent character that I love her. I've loved her.
My favorite. I know I love how she's just unabashedly herself. Yes. And I do like to think about, because of course that must be the case, that there are many people who grow up in communities where standards maybe prescribe their behavior and limit their options. And if you're a child in that who might want to do something else, you know, how do you negotiate that? So I'm thinking about doing a like second generation series, Hearts of the Rich series, so that we get, so Tucker and Nora have two girls, right? Faith and Lavelle, twins. And then Jonas and I made everybody have girls. Somebody will have to have a boy. Well, Nora's pregnant in book 3, so let's say that's probably a boy. You know, Jonas and Tessa have Lizzie, their daughter, and so that we get a book series where, you know, the Rebecca is the oldest, and then there's younger ones as young adults. I do have an idea of what Rebecca's story would be. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
So this is the idea. And I actually worked this out with a good friend who had read my book and is a big romance reader. And we were talking together about possibilities for her. And so we came up, because all of my stories have, you know, one English character, one Amish character, right? And I don't know how sustainable that is forever. I'm writing a prequel novella. Here's more breaking news. With Annie Amos, Nora's friend Annie, who runs the pretzel shop. And her love story, and they're both Amish. So that'll be a prequel novella that I've plotted out and have some fun ideas for about that actually my dad helped me with, who is a historian, a Central Pennsylvania historian, and he had some brilliant tell me. Yeah, so that's coming. But I think Rebecca, one thing that we haven't done yet, because we have people who are in the Amish community deciding whether they'll stay or leave. We have people from outside the Amish community deciding whether they'll join or not. But what we haven't seen is someone who leaves the Amish community and then is pulled back again.
Right.
So I think Rebecca might choose to leave, might get her education, and then come back and find herself drawn to some second chance romance, someone from her youth. Yeah.
Okay.
And then she'll have to decide whether she joins. I think I'll make her. So, you know, I've studied a lot and learned a lot about the Amish community. And if you don't join the church, if you don't really join the church, then you aren't shunned if you leave.
Yes.
Jonas is shunned. Yeah. But if you leave before that, I mean, I think it's still frowned upon, and in many communities that can be a very rocky relationship.
Yeah.
I've made the, you know, Shade Mountain district, my fictional Shade Mountain district, quite becoming more accepting and tolerant, and an opening to the outside a little bit more while trying to maintain their Amish values. So I think if Rebecca leaves and comes back, I think, Verna and her parents, well, I think Nora would be quite prickly about it, but I think would not be cruel to her.
No.
I think would want her to come back. So we'll see what happens if she leaves and comes back, whether she decides to rejoin the community or not.
But then if she leaves for her education, and I know we had talked about her possibly becoming a veterinarian.
Yeah.
If she comes back, is the community going to be, should we say, liberal enough that she'll be allowed to still be a vet?
I know. I'm not sure. I hope so.
I know that there's been one book that somebody has written already about an Amish lady who left and went and became a vet and came back.
I just saw, it's Patricia Johns, right?
Yeah, I've read it. I really enjoyed it.
Because I saw that she's been the other women who are writing in this genre, which now, since I first wrote, the book, has exploded. There's no more too quiet for today's crowded marketplace. There's a big audience for quiet, thoughtful, sweet romances that we didn't really acknowledge 20 years ago, maybe, or weren't writing for. And all these women, Kelly Irvin, Vanessa Chapman, Patricia Johns, have been so lovely, so warm, so welcoming. And so I saw she wrote that. And so then I thought, I kind of want to read that book. And then I started, because you and I were talking too, because of course, Rebecca has her quilts and her kind of artistic. So, but I liked to think of her having a job that she would be needed in the community, and that there might be a real, maybe she could become a doctor too. She could come and work with Richard, maybe.
That's right. Be like a nurse or a vet, a doctor, something that she could come back, and because she's working within his clinic for the Amish, it could work out that way.
Yeah, and he'd be probably close to it. The other thing I have to figure is how time works, but I think we just sort of give ourselves grace with time. I think we just kind of, it keeps being the present because I thought, well, if it's 20 years in the future, do they have to have flying cars? Like, am I writing sci-fi now? I don't think so. I think we just sort of, it continues to be the present, even if the characters are older.
Because I don't think you've actually given a specific age for Rebecca.
Yeah, I haven't given a year. She was like 6 in the first book, and then like 10 in the second book, and then like 14 in the third book. But we can say it whenever, You
could make it that like 10 years in the future, she's just finished and she's having to think about what she wants to do.
Yeah, I think so. So, I find that part of the process really fun. The whole kind of, I really like the thinking up the story phase and the outlining phase and the brainstorming phase. And I think that's a really fun part of writing the book, when anything is possible, And then of course, once you're writing it, the characters start doing all these crazy things that you don't expect them to do anyway. And then they kind of take over. And you're kind of like, but no, my outline says you go, you have to sort of nudge them back gently. But they keep, it's funny. They'll get into trouble and I'll learn things that get me into trouble. Like I didn't know. So I have the Green Ridge Amish community, this Shade Mountain district. In my mind, it's a daughter settlement of the Lancaster Amish, so that they would share rules and characteristics of the Lancaster County Amish. And one of the things that the Lancaster County Amish, they don't ride bicycles. And when I imagined Nora's story, it was so contingent on a bicycle.
Yeah.
And then I read that in Ohio, the Amish do ride bikes. So then it put me in a bit of a box, but then it actually made the story richer, because if you can get medical excuses for things in many Amish communities, and that if the doctor would say she needed to ride her bike to rehab her hip, the bishop would approve, probably. But so it just made, when you get yourself, and sometimes I get myself into trouble and I think, oh no, it's going to stop something. But if I actually kind of walk into that trouble, more story options open, things get more complex and exciting. So I that's why I just try to create these. What do you do if it's a photographer and an Amish guy? What? That's impossible, I like to kind of figure out ways to go through.
And I have to mention Al, the postman.
Al the postman. Well, we need
Al
to
the
share with
postman.
everybody. Let's share with everybody the story. Tell
Yep.
us.
Wendy put a message out on Facebook for us to name her postman character. So I entered my father's name, and Wendy very kindly used it.
Yep.
So
His
my
name
dad's name is
was
Alistair.
correct. Yeah.
So Wendy made the postman Al, and you got some of my father's characteristics without even knowing my dad.
I love
Dad
that.
whistles, he smiles a lot,
Yeah.
and it was really, really lovely.
Oh, it was such a delight. So interestingly, what you probably don't know is Pammy, who is Al's love interest in the story,
Yep.
is also there's a woman from my hometown whose name is Pamela Burns. And when Hometown came out, she was so helpful in terms of getting out the word to the local people. And I did an appearance at the local Barnes and Noble. She put signs up all over town and all this kind of stuff. And she wrote for newspapers. She got newspapers involved. And so I said to her, can I name a character after you? And so that's how Pammy came in. She actually her husband did pass away from cancer. And so and his name was Dave, like in the story. And so I said, can I honor you and Dave in the story? And so I sent it all to her before I published it to make sure she was happy how it was all written. So the nice thing about Pammy and Al is that they're both based on real people, and they share the characteristics of the actual people.
Yeah, which is lovely.
Yeah, so that was really fun. She does not run a cupcake cafe. I do think my hometown could use a cupcake cafe. It has some good bakeries, but if somebody wanted to open a cupcake cafe, I would patronize it.
Yeah. So if you were going to, I have to think, if you're going to write, shall we say, the next generation.
Yeah.
That I think maybe we should. How about having Pammy and Al, the cupcake business, the cake bakery, as the teenage hangout?
Oh, that's such a good idea. That's a great idea. I love that. Yes.
Al still does his paper round, but he comes in and helps her out when it gets busy.
Yeah, it would be fun to see him behind the counter with like an apron on and finding his own. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It would be interesting too to see, like, would he add anything to the, because we know Al, he wears his concert tees. We know he's a music fan. Would he have like would there be open mic nights? That Al's bringing his musician friends in at night, that during the day, but at night maybe they turn it into like a little open mic, and Al's hosting little concerts in the town. I always, as an artist who came from a small town, I always like to play up, the role of the arts in small towns and the way, let's hear musicians, let's have visual artists, let's have writers, So that's a fun idea. And I do like to, I think it helps in terms of just the continuity of the series. If we go back to the Tasty Freeze place and we go, or I can't remember what it's called, what I call it in the book, the Freeze, where they, where they go for their ice cream, and the House of Pizza place too is also based on a real place. I like them going back to those places because I feel like it makes the town consistent and feel realer. And then when people go and they visit my hometown, they'll be like, "Oh, these were all real places."
Yeah. So that'd be really fun.
That's a great idea. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I think they'll definitely be married. I mean, I think Al and Pammy find their way together, at that point. So.
Yeah, Dad still hasn't read yet. He's been reading other things, but I'm definitely going to give it to him and say, right, you need to read this. You need to read this.
No, that's nice. That's nice.
So are you working on anything new, anything else at the moment?
I am. So I have written a sweet holiday romance. So it's a Christmas story, and it's all drafted. So I'm editing it now and so it's outside of the world of the Hearts of the Ridge. It's a different world, and it's about Santa's grumpy reindeer groom and the seasonal mail carrier from Texas who gets hired to come deliver the mail to the North Pole. And it's pretty delightful. It's set at the real life North Pole, but Santa is there.
Wow.
But in this world, Santa is a position that's handed down. It's not like one
Okay.
magical immortal guy, and so different people take over the role of Santa as time goes on. But it is still, the job is to deliver all the presents to all the children of the world. So yeah, it is, as of now, it's temporarily called Becoming the Clauses, and yeah, so I'm pretty excited about it. I'm sort of a final round of edits, and then need to send it out to people to read to see if the story's working. And then I'll be submitting it. So I'm pretty excited about that one. Yeah. So that's
So when are you hoping to have it published by?
Tomorrow? No, I mean, you know, it would be, if it could, it depends on what route it goes. Cause I really thought, you know, there's so many options open to authors now. So I can, you know, look to work with a different publishing house than the one I've been working with, or look to work with the Wide Rose Press again, or look to self-publish. You know, there's so many authors who are doing both traditional publishing, indie publishing, and self-publishing. And by indie, I guess I mean smaller publishers and larger publishers. You know, if I self-pubbed it, that would be a way that it would be sure to be out by next Christmas. But I don't know. We'll see. It might be the best thing I've ever written. So my husband, who has read, he read the first one, I think. I don't think he's not really a romance fan, but he's a sci-fi reader.
Okay.
And this book has elements of a little kind of light science fiction elements, in terms of, I make the North Pole be a place that mingles science and magic, you know, so that's
delightful.
It's pretty fun. So there's like some physics and things, and he kind of consulted on some of here's an idea, you know, about how I could do some of these things. And so I read it to him as I was writing it. It's dual point of view. So it's the guy and the girl, and it's written in first person, which I haven't done in the other books. So that was all fun. So he's a big fan. And so I have his seal of approval on it. And yeah, we'll see what's.
Oh, I look forward to reading it.
It's pretty fun. When it's ready, I'll send it to you and you can tell me.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be great.
So yeah, and I've also I've been writing a lot. I wrote a middle grade ghost story. Yeah, and so that I've been sort of trying to find a home for. It's about a group of girls in 12, 13-year-old girls in Maine, and an old house and a ghost. And
that sounds ideal for this time of year.
Yeah, it has a mystery kind of element to it. So, you're hearing my loud New York sirens.
No worries.
I'll close the window for a second. So I'm kind of experimenting with some other genres, which is fun.
That sounds great.
While I'm not wanting to abandon my sweet romance who I love so much.
That's great. So, have you always wanted to write, or was it just a general progression from everything you've done?
I was an obsessive diarist. Like, I wrote in my diary starting when I was 9, like all the time through into college, I'd say. So I think I kind of taught myself a little bit how to write just by writing every day, you know, in my diaries. And then I studied literature, you know, but I remember when I was in high school, sort of thinking that I needed to decide whether I wanted to be an actor or a writer. I kind of thought I had to choose one or the other. And I went to a summer program between my 11th and 12th grade for theater. And it was like in Pennsylvania used to have this thing called the Governor's School for the Arts. It was this amazing free program where students from across the state could apply in dance, music, theater, and visual art. And if you were accepted, you got to do this free 6-week program that was paid for by the state. And it was so neat. And of course, the funding no longer exists for it. So I went for theater. I auditioned for theater, but you could choose a minor. You did your main thing. And so then I did writing. And I remember thinking I had to pick one or the other. And at the time, I thought I picked theater.
Okay.
But I have learned now that very few artists are just one thing. Very few actors in particular, because it's great work, but there's a lot of time in between. So my friends who are actors, you know, do all kinds of other things. Many audiobook narrators, many writers, many teachers, many coaches. They all do all kinds of things in between those acting jobs. And so I think I always did want to be a writer as well. And the thing of growing up was realizing you don't have to be just one thing, you know, especially it's actually rather impractical. And I've been lucky enough to be able to be very much a multi-hyphenate, you know, to do many, many different things at different times. And that's been pretty great.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because at the moment I'm listening to on audio Kelly Bishop's autobiography, The Third Gilmore Girl.
Oh,
and it's like, I'm amazed at how much she has done.
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't realized that she was in the original production of A Chorus Line.
Oh, really?
And that they had, like, there was this big meeting before, you know, of various people.
Mom? Is that the actress who plays the mother?
Yeah, she plays Emily Gilmore.
You know, Emily Gilmore is Darcy's mother in my head. In my head, Emily Gilmore is absolutely Darcy's mother.
Oh, like, yeah. I could see that.
Right? I picture her, Isabel King 100% in my head. Oh, that's amazing. So so she was in the original production of A Chorus Line. I saw that production.
She won a Tony Award for it.
Did she really? Wow.
But she was like, there was a group of them that got together, and they told their story to, is it Alan Bennett?
Menken? I can't remember, but anyhow,
and he basically wrote the script for the show, and she ended up playing basically what the character she played was basically her story.
Wow.
But, and then I was listening to it last night, and she finishes the chapter, and then came Dirty Dancing, and I'm like, you were in Dirty Dancing? And then my brain went, Baby's mum.
Oh my gosh. Wow. What a career she's had.
Oh, she's an amazing career. And the book is really, really good. She actually reads it, she narrates it herself.
Yeah, I've got to listen to that. I think she's exceptional I mean, I love her as Lorelai's mother. Wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely. They are Darcy's parents in my head. Mm-hmm. And Richard Gilmore are right? They're exactly, because I mean, they just seem so much like them. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that, you know, you're sort of saying that you needed to do various other things as well as your acting, and she's the same. She was started off as a ballet dancer, obviously, but then realized she had to do other things as well, and she wanted to do other things like singing, and then into acting and musical theater, and then onwards. It's amazing how everything sort of crosses over.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's really neat. I'm going to definitely check that out for sure. Yeah.
If you can, I am thoroughly enjoying it. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
So cool.
How did you end up doing what you're doing? How did you end up with this amazing book channel?
How did I end up? I was watching YouTube channels for about a year, 2 years before I took the plunge, and there were some YouTubers or booktubers that I really liked, and I'd started to talk to them via their channels, and I just decided one day, right, okay, let's go for it. And I just started, and it sort of slowly grew and grew, and it kind of seemed to sort of stagnate at sort of about 300 and then about 3 weeks ago, I was asked to go on a live show with Tiffany the Beach Bum Bookworm and some others. And from there, my channel, I've suddenly received over 100 new subscribers. And I'm like, wow, thank you guys. You know, so it's really nice. And this is kind of, I thought I really wanted to interview somebody, and you, with your new book coming out, I thought you were a brilliant for my first candidate, as it were.
I'm honored.
Well, thank you. And hopefully there are going to be more. Once I work out how to get this to actually go live, it will be great.
Yeah.
But once I sort of start maybe doing that, my channel will grow. If it doesn't, I'm not bothered. I do it for fun. I do it to promote books that I enjoy reading. I love reading. And if I can share new authors with people, then I am really, really happy to do so. You know, because I met, you know, that I met Erica May a couple of weeks ago when she was over.
That's so cool.
It was brilliant. She's herself and her sister Rachel are just absolutely delightful people. So I'm hoping I'll obviously be promoting her new book as well when it comes, you know, when it comes out next month. So see if we can persuade Erica to come on and do a show with me, which would be really nice.
I'm sure she will. She's lovely. It's the like the most supportive community, this book community, you know, and I met her through the Wild Rose Press, our romance publisher, but, you know, through Bookstagram, and I've just met the most lovely people, you know, who just like love stories and love storytelling and love storytellers and love readers, you know. It's just this wonderful group.
I mean, I've made so many friends on BookTube that are like family to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's I can't believe how supportive and friendly everyone has been, and it's been really, really great.
Yeah.
I'm kind of loving my time on here, so it's good.
Oh, I'm so glad.
So if you had any advice for people who are writing or who would like to get into writing, what would your advice be?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I guess I would say, don't be afraid to let the story take you places you weren't expecting, sort of along the lines of the things that I was talking about. It's easy to, you know, they talk about plotters and pantsers, right? People who plot are people who write by the seat of their pants. And I feel like I do need to know the ending before I start. I mean, with romance, it's a little like, no, we know what the ending's going to be, but I need to know a little bit more specifically about what that ending is going to be. But in the middle, and I have a little bit of a, you know, I like to have my ducks in a row. And when one of those ducks decides to like swim to New Jersey, I need to follow that duck, you know? And so I would say, like, let your characters surprise you, let the story surprise you, and don't be afraid when it goes in a different direction, follow it there, and then go a little bit deeper, and then swim under the water with the duck, you know, like really. And I think that's where the magic happens in storytelling, you know, when something a little bit bigger. I mean, I know we're just talking about silly light romance novels, but sometimes I think there's a undercurrent of story that wants to come out, and most exciting times are when that, you know, suddenly, what, they're kissing? They're kissing? They weren't supposed to kiss. That wasn't supposed to happen for another two chapters. But to like then let that happen and then see where it takes you. So that's what I would say. Dare to follow stories and characters to places that you didn't imagine and plan ahead of time. And that's what's really exciting. I think that would be my advice.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's very good advice. Yeah.
That's what I try to do anyway.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've asked all the questions I've wanted to ask.
I asked you what I wanted to know, which was how we ended up getting to listen and hear from you. So I love knowing your story as well. Anytime, I'll come back and chat anytime. And
absolutely. Yeah. I was say, hopefully next time I will definitely work out how this goes live. But I've been recording it, and hopefully I'll be able to just slot it straight into YouTube. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for coming. I've thoroughly enjoyed our chat. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Next time in real life in Scotland when I come visit, or you come.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. We will definitely meet up when you come over here. Yeah. But I'm going to stop the recording now. So bye, friends. Thank you for watching. Any comments or questions, if you ask them down below, I will get back to Wendy and she will do so. But thank you guys for watching. Bye.